Hey everybody, this is Jay Young with the Jay Young Show. I am so happy to be here today. Man, I tell you what, we got a great show for you today. First, Jordan Soto, my co-host. There you go. Hey Jordan, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Good.
I was going over some of the latest news because I know that that's something that we've wanted to kind of work in. And have you heard about the new airport that they're trying to build in Hawaii? It's like billions of dollars. It's a massive airport that they're trying to build. And so Jay, I don't know if you have any vacations planned, but you might want to fly into there eventually.
Man, I've been to Hawaii. It's been a long time, but what a beautiful place. What a beautiful place.
Absolutely.
And I always thought,
Any breaking news for you?
yeah, I was reading this morning about the Harris and Trump proposals add to soaring federal debt. I mean, our deficit right now is $1.9 trillion a year. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that if I have a deficit in my household, my wife is mad, right? But I can't imagine how much $1.9 trillion is. I mean, it's our deficit, our debt is soaring, and their proposals are going to add to that. So I don't know what's going to happen when your kids have kids. Jordan, just think about that for a second. I mean, man, I know. I mean, what's the deficit going to be? How are we going to live? How are we going to we got to start printing money and forget about telling anybody. We just need to print
No, I
money and
think that's
start
the
paying
problem,
bills.
Jay. I think that the printing the money was the problem.
Yeah, I know. That's the big thing in the news. I mean, I know that we have the election coming up. We have TCU volleyball is ranked number 23. TCU volleyball has never been ranked before in the country. They're ranked 23rd. We have deficit. We have Jordan Soto. What else? I mean, what a great day.
I want to correct something. I'm so sorry, I misspoke. Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines are merging in a $1.9 billion merger. So, not an airport per se, actually an airline.
Gotcha.
But hey, with the merger, maybe that is gonna, elevate the airline. So, so yeah, there's that. And then of course, we have our Amazon Prime Day coming up. Do you ever order anything off Amazon Prime?
That's true. I do. Well, I know my wife does. I'm not sure how many times I've ever been home and didn't have a package or two in the front. So convenient.
It's like Christmas every day
Yeah,
when you get a package.
really is. It is so convenient. It's so convenient. Just click and there it comes to your house, and it doesn't really charge you a tremendous amount of money. I don't know how they do that. How they make money.
That's a good question, Jay. Maybe we should get Jeff on the line and
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
with him about it.
We need to. That's something we need to work on there. Emilio, we need to work on that. How do we get him on and just say, hey, how do you order a paperclip, deliver it to my house
That's, talking to the
for 12
marketing
cents?
director, Laura, and getting her. She has all the connections, so
That's right.
talking with her about that is probably where we're going to be able to make that magic. So I think that wraps it up for me with latest news, unless you have anything else, Jay.
Man, there's so many things going on in the world today, but I know we want to get to our speaker, Sarah Magruder. I mean, I've known Sarah for a few years, just in NAPE and the Hart conferences, things of that nature, and what an inspiration. It says that she's an influential leader. Does that mean that she's an influencer? I don't know.
She is an influencer, Jay.
Okay? All right. I don't know all these new terms you young people throw at me at times and time, but I don't know. But she has a company called Savvy. I hope I'm saying that right. Savvy Oil and Gas. Is that right, Sarah?
That is correct.
Savvy Oil and Gas Consulting in Houston, and she's trying to add to our deficit because she's trying to get people to pay less taxes. Is that right, Sarah? No, I'm just kidding. I think, but
I'm trying to help the deficit.
Oh, are you? Okay, all right, good. That's good. Because I mean, we don't need any help on that other side over there. I mean, I tell you what, it's getting crazy. I don't know. I can't even believe our interest expense on our deficit. But anyway, hey, so Sarah has been in the oil and gas business for, we're not going to say years because that may say something about the age. We're not going to go there, obviously. So we're just going to say that she's experienced in the oil and gas industry. And Sarah, do you want to tell us something about yourself, about how you got started? Did you grow up in Houston, and how did you start in the oil and gas industry? Do you want to kind of give us a quick bio?
Absolutely. Um, so I kind of grew up everywhere. You mentioned Hawaii earlier. I've lived in Hawaii twice. Actually, my dad was in the Navy. So Louisiana has always been home to me. That's where my mom's family's from. But with my dad, we traveled a lot, lived in California, Hawaii, Florida, Washington, D.C., which is where I was born. So just domestically, but pretty well traveled. But again, Louisiana was always home. My parents retired in Pensacola, and I went to undergrad at LSU. Um, I came to Texas in 2001, straight out of LSU, and the it's a great story because I had three job offers coming over here, and one was with Enron, one was with Arthur Anderson, and another was with this small consulting firm called Ryan. And for some reason, I think I had that kind of entrepreneur spirit in me that this new little startup called Ryan sounded way more fun to me than working on the trading floors at Enron or doing federal tax accounting for Arthur Anderson. And within 6 months of moving to Houston, Enron blew up and Arthur Anderson went down. I looked at my parents and said, "Look what a good decision maker I am already." And so at Ryan, when that all happened, the little company I was with bought up a lot of the side companies from Arthur Anderson and the other big four firms. So we bought a severance tax group, which does oil and gas severance tax incentives. And I ended up on that and have been doing that now for 23 years. So it was very happenstance um, how that all converged. And I ended up in a very, very niche area that I've become one of the leading experts in.
That is awesome. And I was going to say, you said Arthur Anderson and you said Enron, and I was like, I hope this third one didn't blow up, before you said Ryan. But Ryan is an incredible company. I mean, they're incredible, huge.
It's amazing. When I started, there were 8 people in the Houston office, and I can remember sitting in a meeting with Brent Ryan at one of our corporate meetings, and he told us, he said, "This will be a global company, and we will have our names on the buildings in every major city." And I'll be damned if he didn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that man, he's done amazing things, and I admire him a lot. I credit a lot of what I learned to my 5 years there were very integral. I think sometimes your first job you have sets your tone for things, and Brent's very detail oriented. He's very client focused. I learned a lot of great things being there and working for that company, who now happens to be one of my biggest competitors.
Well, I mean, I think that you've taken what you've learned and you've run with it. I mean, Hart Energy's 25 Influential Women in Energy nominee. You serve on the Texas Energy Council and the Women's Energy Network. You are the influencer, in my opinion, of the energy industry. I'm always seeing your posts on LinkedIn. You're always doing something new and something fun and innovative. One thing that I really want you to kind of discuss here with us is the importance of humanizing the energy industry and then also shining a light on the different facets that are within the energy industry. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about that?
I can sure try. Um, I think any entrepreneur would tell you that no one can tell you exactly what to do and how to do it to succeed. It's trial and error of figuring out different things. And so it was funny that you called me an influencer because I don't see myself that way. But I very purposely chose to use LinkedIn as a marketing platform for Savvy when I started, because it's cheap and you can reach a lot of people. And so when you're a small company, you want to make as big of impact as you can. But a lot of the decisions that I've made in my career have been strategic, especially the last 5 years of having my company, of figuring out which conferences I wanted to attend and sponsoring and investing in those, connecting and making meaningful connections with people in my industry who I like, whether that's through Women's Energy Network or being asked to be on the Texas Energy Council, taking any opportunity I can to speak at an event, moderate an event, be on a podcast. Um, I think that, the energy industry, and I'll be curious to hear how Jay thinks about this being a multi-generational oil and gas guy, but I think we are one of the worst marketers of our industry. And I'll give you a perfect example. My dad came to work with us. He kind of volunteers at Savvy when my team assistant went on maternity leave. And he hasn't had the greatest outlook on oil and gas, even though I've been in it for so long. But when he started getting involved in our calls and hearing everything, he was like, man, the news doesn't tell you all the things oil and gas companies are doing for communities and how much they're trying to help the environment and what they're trying to do with the economy. And I was like, I know that because I've been in this industry 20 plus years. But it's interesting that outside of the oil and gas industry, a lot of people don't have a view of that. And I feel like part of my putting myself out there, whether that's on social media or at conferences or things like that, is I'm trying to spread the good word. I'm trying to get people more informed and to have people more excited and more knowledgeable about the oil and gas industry in any way, shape, or form that I have ability to. And it is interesting to me, though, how, again, I'd love to hear what Jay has to say, how bad oil and gas is at marketing itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing I think of is, the 2006 State of the Union address. George W. said, "Hey, we have an addiction to oil," and that's a bad word, addiction. But it's true. We literally have an addiction. We like to drive. We like nice roads. We like plastics. My glasses. Everything around here probably is. The building behind me, which probably has Ryan's name on it. I think it does. The one on maybe this side has Ryan's name on it. But it's true. And everybody in the oil and gas industry, we're not looking to go out and put oil all over the roads and be environmentally unsafe. And we're doing our best every day. Oil and gas companies are, and we're spending money to do that. And we have to satisfy that addiction. So we're out here working, putting a lot of capital at risk. I mean, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars a year, billions if you're Exxon, Endeavor, Diamondback just bought Endeavor, $26 billion. I mean, these companies are putting money out there, wanting a return on their investment, but it's all because, hey, we have a need. I mean, the United States has a need for oil. Demand for oil continues to go up, which means we need oil. If we don't get it here, we're going to need it. We're going to have to get it from overseas. That doesn't sound like a good option. I mean, there's just so many different things that we have to think about. And I know that Biden comes in and says, no pipeline, no permits, and all of a sudden he just kills our industry. And people on Exxon's board say, we don't want Exxon to drill for oil and gas. We don't want, there's green people, tree huggers, I don't know what you call these people, but they're all over. And, I could go on and on about that. I mean, this is about Sarah Magruder, but it is absolutely true. Hey, I want to go back, if you don't mind. I've got down here, I know you went to LSU. I got some really good friends, Marcus Spears, Nate Livings. I've been on the football field at LSU before a game with Marcus Spears, and he's like,
I love Marcus Spears so much.
Oh my God, he's like God. He literally, we're walking right through the field house right before the game. The coach is giving his talk, and he goes, "Oh, hey, Marcus." It's like right before a game. And then I'm on the field catching field goals, before the game, because that's Marcus. But so you went to school. What did you get your degree in at LSU?
So non-traditionally, I ended up getting my degree in finance. So I was one of those kids who, I don't know how kids do it these days with college. They want you to declare your major freshman year, and you have to commit to a program. When I started at LSU, I'd always wanted to be a veterinarian. And I interned at a vet clinic the summer before, and realized I can't handle the sight of blood or animals in pain. So I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. What am I going to do with my life? So then I thought about being a lawyer, and I talked to one of my dad's friends who was a lawyer, because I thought it was all like Perry Mason moments, like you get to get up and, defend people. And he was like, no, it's like 99% reading. Most of your cases get settled before you go to court.
Right.
And I was like, that sounds terrible. So I decided I was going to major in English and minor in Italian, and I was going to
Italian?
write a book.
Wow.
And my parents are like, what are you going to write a book about? And I was like, well, I got to go to Italy and find out. Like, I don't know. And so they were like, oh my God, what have we done? Because I went on a full financial scholarship to LSU. And they were just like, oh my gosh. But with my scholarship came a student job in the business school. So I worked in the graduate studies office of the business school. So because I was there so much, I said, well, I might as well take some business classes as electives. And I really enjoyed them. However, I hated accounting because true accounting is more of what you would think of as your federal income tax accounting and audit. And I just thought that was awful. So I majored in finance, and I don't know if I thought I was going to be a banker or go into marketing. I really did not have a plan or direction. I'd initially planned to just go straight through and get my MBA and figure it out. But then I had these 3 job offers kind of by accident, and I went, hey, I can always go back and get my MBA, which I did. But this is a opportunity to go and work now. And so again, Ryan hires people with finance or accounting degrees. And so I did go back and get my MBA to get my accounting hours in case I ever do want to get my CPA, but I've never really needed it in the area that I work in.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So so undergrad, and then you got three job offer interviews, right? How did you do that? Did LSU set you up for the interviews, or did somebody else?
So they did. So, LSU has, back then we would do career fairs and you would go, but this happened to be my boss, who was the head of graduate studies. They were doing interviews on campus and in the business school down on our first floor. And she said, hey, I think you could just go sign up for an interview on a list and say, I want to do an interview.
Yeah.
And she said, you're going to need an internship if you go and get your MBA. So why don't you go do practice interviews and go down and do that? So I signed up for a bunch of them, ended up getting visits and offers from those 3 companies. But I was literally doing it for practice. And I think there's something to be said for that when everything's not on the line and you're not like, oh my God, I have to get a job. You're more relaxed, or I had no idea what I was doing. But it just sort of worked out that way. Kind of my career as a whole has been right place, right time, taking advantage of an opportunity that was put in front of me.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I know that when you talk about, I'm very interested to know for our listeners, watchers, or whoever it is, people that built on the show, because I mean, you get an LSU degree, then you get these interviews, and then you just have to, you can choose whichever one you want. You choose Ryan, which is a great, I mean, obviously that right there is a good turning point in your life, because you got work with Brian and Ryan, and then all of a sudden, then you started a company just like that you're 25 years into. So that is awesome. What a great job. What a great story.
It is a very full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle moment.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to talk about is so you had this amazing opportunity, you watched it blossom into what Ryan is today. Now, back in 2019, you decided to go off on your own way and start your own business. What was the biggest challenge with starting that business? And then what led you to say, yes, I'm going to do this?
Well, I just I can give you the fun answer or the or the traditional answer. Which would you prefer?
The fun one.
So, I thought about it for quite a while. When I left Ryan, the reason that I left, and I mean, great company. But the reason I left was when you come in as a consultant straight out of school, you don't know anything. And as Jay, I'm sure you can attest to, they don't teach you oil and gas accounting or about oil and gas in general in college. I learned zero about that. My very first introduction was through a consulting role. And then when you're consulting, we were looking at the back end of data. So I didn't really understand production. I didn't understand marketing. I didn't understand gas balancing and revenue and everything that went before that. And I knew that that was a piece that was missing in my toolbox to understand what I really, really, truly did. Because severance tax, the thing about it is, it's the tax that's paid on everything severed from the earth by oil and gas companies. And everything rolls into that calculation. So your production comes in, your marketing agreements and your pricing, your revenue, your deductions that are based in your lease agreements. So there's a lot to understand to be able to fix somebody's severance tax return. You have to understand oil and gas accounting and production as a whole. So I went to work for a company called Swift Energy that recruited me over there. And it was a fantastic place to be because they were kind of, Jay, like y'all's company. Swift had been around generations. They were huge in Louisiana, which was a bonus for me because I was from there. But everybody that worked there had worked there 20 to 25 years. So I was the new kid on the block, but our whole accounting group and everything was on one floor. So I got to learn from who I consider to be experts in every area I needed to know something in. And I soaked up every piece of knowledge that I could get. And it's funny because just like in oil and gas, a lot of those core people from Swift, ended up over as director of accounting at Anadarko, or Barry Turcott's up at BKV as their CAO. And so many people landed in places that have helped me later in my career connect to, but they were just such a good group. And I learned so much about oil and gas there. Then Southwestern Energy moved down from Arkansas and recruited me over there to run their group. And so I got to learn kind of on a bigger scale company, and they were doing acquisitions at the time. There was a lot going on, new accounting software change. So I spent 10 years in oil and gas actually doing this work and learning the whole basis of it. In that time, I got married and divorced, and one of my, who had started as my intern and then Ryan ended up going out and starting his own company, and he had asked me to go with him, but
Your
I was
ex-husband?
newly divorced and I didn't
Your
feel
ex-husband
very
was your
secure
intern?
about
What'd you
that.
say? Your ex-husband was your intern? Did I catch that wrong?
No,
Oh, you said you had an
no,
intern, you got married,
separate
divorced,
stories.
you had an intern. Okay, I'm sorry. What now?
We haven't gotten to the interesting part yet.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
That is
I'm
not
sorry.
it. So the thought had been in my mind. He went out, started his own company, and then now he is the principal over severance tax at Ryan. So that thought had always been in the back of my mind that when your intern and the person that worked for you is the head of a practice somewhere, that's something that I could do. I just feel like it was timing. And by the time 2019 rolled around, my son was 3 years old. He was a little bit older and able to do that.
right.
I had an opportunity, kind of a window in which I could do that. But the funny part of the story is the day that I decided to do it was I was watching the movie Straight Outta Compton with my husband. And so Dr. Dre walks in and tells him, he was under contract and doing all this great stuff. And he walked in and said, "Hey, I'm out." And he literally dropped the mic and said, "I'm going to start my own company and do my own thing." And I looked at my husband and I said, "I'm out." And he was like, "What, where, what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to start my own company." And he was like, "Off the movie?" And I was like, "Oh, no, obviously I've been thinking about it for a long time." It was just that moment that clicked that the timing is right. I can do this.
Yeah,
I have an opportunity. And so there we went.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Let,
think
let me say something
sometimes
real
that's
quick,
why,
because I want to make sure that everybody understands what severance tax is, okay? Because No, we're not going to go into the intern ex-husband. Okay, we're not going to. But we're going to talk. So severance. So like an oil and gas company may produce oil and gas, and then they pay severance tax. So it's like 4.5% for oil, 7.5% for gas in Texas, right? Is that right?
Correct. 4.6 for oil, 7.5 for gas. So
Okay.
yes, and it really is named incorrectly. It should be called a production tax or an extraction tax, but it's called a severance tax because it's any natural resource that is severed from the earth. It's essentially the companies have to recompensate the state for taking its natural resources. So
Gotcha.
there's actually a severance tax for oil, gas, timber, coal, gold, iron ore, anything that is severed from the earth in the United States. And every state, that's a different rate or way of taxing. So Texas does it based on value. There's states like Louisiana that do it based on the volume that you produce. The rates are very arbitrary and spread. New Mexico has super high rates. Oklahoma has lower ones. The way that it differs and where Savvy really comes in is there are exemptions and incentives that you can take that lowers that tax that you pay. And that's what we're experts in. And for every state, they're different. A lot of them have to do with how you produce your gas. So I go out to the field a lot. I know a lot about gas production and how gas is processed. And we kind of have to follow a molecule from when it leaves the wellhead to when you have to pay tax on it. And so it kind of Savvy's evolved. We used to just be strictly cleaning up these accounting returns and finding savings for companies. It's really shifted more toward tax planning now in saying, if you're going to do an acquisition in this area, what does that look like on a compliance landscape? What's going to come back and bite you on the back end that looks good on the front end, but has a lot of complexity on the back end regulatory wise. And so we've gotten involved in kind of a lot of M&A consulting just from that end of valuing things, doing some cleanup work, helping with putting this stuff in place. So it's an area where, like a lot of oil and gas, a lot of people have retired over the years, especially during COVID and the downturns and dips that we've had. We've lost that institutional knowledge of those people that did this job for 20 or 30 years. A lot of it got outsourced to other countries like Buenos Aires and India, Mexico. And we've lost this knowledge and it's costing people a lot of money. So that's where Savvy came in and where we really found our niche is to go in this area to help reduce the taxes that are paid. And the other important part about severance tax is it is a huge funding point for a lot of states. So for Texas last year, the severance tax that was collected was $36 billion. And that all goes into a rainy day fund for the state of Texas for years when we need it. But they actually capped out the rainy day fund last year. So they have all these extra funds that can be spent on roads and schools and everything like that. So, states like Oklahoma, severance tax is a huge revenue generator for the state.
Okay.
Interesting.
Who's your typical client?
It's always E&P operators because the producer's the one who pays the tax in most states, and that's who's liable for everything. Mm-hmm. So our typical client can be anything from a super major to someone who owns 4 wells. My favorite clients are kind of the mid to the large size ones. And we have several clients right now that started out small and have grown tremendously through acquisition. So this M&A market has been good to us, and it creates a lot of opportunity with companies going into different states. But it's also consolidating down the pool of who's available there. But yeah, Texas is our sweet spot. We love Texas, and Texas is, I would say, regulatory wise, the most beneficial with incentives and stuff for companies. So that's where we like to play the most. However, we do a lot of work in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, not really up in the Marcellus because they don't have it together quite yet for our purposes. But any state that has oil and gas accounting, and we've dabbled a little bit offshore as well. But my preferred client would be somebody that has Texas properties, mid to large size, because typically your super majors will have a whole department that does this.
Right.
Whereas smaller to mid-size to large companies may have one person that's wearing 16 hats.
Right.
And so they need a little bit more help in our areas. And we have a little bit different viewpoint of how we handle things is we really see ourselves as true consultants. So we want to go in, fix things, help you get set up for the future, pass that back to your team, and then step back and say, our job's done when you don't need us anymore. So that's a little different than some of the other consultants in our area who, want to be on the payroll every year. We like to do new things, and we feel like we've done a good job if we go in, clean things up, pass it back, make it better, and then step back and let the company operate.
So you're really not. I'm just trying to think through this, and I did this with my house, right? Because my house and my taxes, we pay an enormous amount of taxes on our house here in Dallas because we don't have a state income tax. So therefore, hey, how are they going to get you? Well, they got to generate money somewhere. It's not free. So they lower my basis or my taxable. Is that what you do? Is that kind of where your deal is? You come in and look at all our wells and right to all these states and go, hey, this well, you're saying this well is worth $2 million. It's really only worth $300,000. You can't lower the 4.5 and the 4.6 and the 7.5. You're just going into the different states or counties or whoever puts a number on that well. If it's a $2 million well and you say, hey, yeah, this well isn't worth $2 million, you guys are wrong. It's really worth. Is that how your business operates?
You're close. That's close. That's a little more in line with property tax, where they go in and reduce your value of your total.
Yeah.
We're a little bit like that because we are reducing the net taxable value that taxes is charged on.
Yeah.
But we do that through credits and incentives. So to give you an example with personal taxes, say you're in TurboTax and they say, here's the amount of money that you made. Well, if you've had a kid, you get a $15,000 credit. If you have a house, you get to deduct your property tax interest that you paid or bill that you paid. If you drive a yellow Prius from 1989, you get a $500 credit here. All of those things reduce the amount that you ultimately pay tax on. So we're living in that window for oil and gas companies. And I'll give you an example of a couple of the things that we do to reduce tax is if a well is producing in a certain area that is listed as high cost gas by the state of Texas, then you pay a reduced tax rate, but you have to go through the process of applying for that application, proving geologically that it is in the range it's supposed to be, and then you can get a reduced tax rate for 10 years. So we can change the tax rate that way. On your deduction side, state of Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma and New Mexico to an extent all have what they call a marketing cost or post-production cost deduction. So the reason that was created, and it just so happened to be created in 2001 when I started this, so I've kind of grown up with this exemption or deduction, is say you're out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and you drill a well, and you need to get that product to market, but it costs you a lot more money to drill in this arbitrary area without resources and get your product to market in a certain place. What the state was trying to do is put incentives in place to say, if you go pull those costs out, and make it fair, we want to make it fair for everybody, no matter where they're drilling, to be able to pay comparable tax, because otherwise nobody's ever going to go try out that random area. So we want to give you a little bit of an incentive to do that. However, on a large scale, that's really hard to dig through your general ledger and your LOE costs and carve out what's truly the cost of that pipeline and compressing that gas to get it to specs and proving that all out to create the cost that you can take. and that's what we do. But the impetus of that was to make it a more fair and level playing field. So no matter where you're producing in Texas, you're not getting penalized if you have to spend more money to process your gas because it's sour, to get it to market specs, or they really wanted to create parity in the state. So that's where those came from, and that's that area we specialize in.
I got you. I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, the savvy oil and gas secret sauce, but I just thought that would be interesting.
No, that's public knowledge. So
Yeah. Okay. No, that's
I
good.
think
So
Sarah's
you're
the secret
looking for
sauce there.
E&P companies or like ours, like King Operating, anybody that pays taxes, and the more the better, I guess. Just to look at how can you help save money. Okay, that's good.
Well, Sarah, I was just curious about this because we don't see a lot of women-owned, women-led businesses in the energy industry. I'm really curious to know what that's been like for you and how you've overcome. It's not a stigma, but it's just something that's happened in the oil and gas industry, especially. So just talking a little bit more about that with us.
Good point, Jordan.
yeah, so I heard you just had a guest on a couple episodes ago who was doing the royalty packages,
Mm.
that was in this. So I heard y'all touched on that a little bit. What's interesting is right after we record this podcast, I'm actually going to a little female founders lunch that
Oh,
is started by a couple of us that are in the energy industry, that started our own companies and are women, just for us to have kind of a round table to talk about exactly what you're asking me. Like, what are the challenges that are a little bit unique to us? Um, it's definitely different. It's something I was very conscious of when I started. And I used that as a twist, actually, for my company in general. So our logo is a unicorn. And we did that for a couple reasons. One is we're very unique in what we do. But I wanted it to be a strong unicorn because I didn't want a girly unicorn to turn off the male dominated industry. When I go places, you always see me. I'm in bright colors. Jay's seen me at a lot of events. I choose to do that because for probably the first 15 years of my career, I was trying to wear navy suits and black and be one of the guys. Like I wanted to fit in. I didn't want to stand out as a woman. I just wanted to be taken seriously for what I did. And now that I own my own company, I'm like, I want to stand out. I am different. I'm a
Hmm.
woman. What we do is different, and I'm proud of that. And I want to be me. And I think part of that comes with age and confidence, and it's a little bit of a marketing thing as well. But being a woman here, I'll give you an example of one of the first meetings we had the first year when I started. My CFO and I went to the meeting and sat down, and they immediately just looked at him and said, "So tell us about your company." And he was like, "It's her company." And
Hmm.
it's sort of just that assumption that the man is in charge. And so I had that happen. We were up in Vail for a conference last week, which was beautiful. And same thing happened. Somebody walked up and started talking to my COO and thought he owned the company. And so it's kind of that unconscious bias. I don't think it's purposeful in any way. I think, like you said, Jordan, there's just fewer women business owners in oil and gas and in energy. And so by default, people just sort of assume that you work for the company, not the owner of the company. Um, that doesn't really bother me quite as much. I think that it's also a little bit regional, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I feel like in Houston, I don't feel like that's a factor here. When you go up to maybe Oklahoma City and Tulsa, I would say that's a little bit what I would call more old school oil and gas. traditionally you don't see a lot of women in management roles there. And so I think there's a bit of that too, where when I'm talking peer to peer, if I'm trying to sign a client, I would say 90% of the people that are the CFO or controllers that I'm dealing with happen to be men. And that comes into play too. Say I'm going up to an event and I want to go grab dinner with a prospective client or with my client. And if that happens to be a man, there's a thing where you have to be like, well, we can't go to dinner alone because that
Right.
would look
There's
weird.
again,
So there's just little ways that it kind of ebbs in and hits you now and then. None of them are insurmountable, but they're there still. And again, I feel like it's a little bit regional. Some of the older private companies, are just a little bit different than working with a super major who is a very, very diverse set of people there. So really, I think for anybody who's been in business, I've been in business almost 5 years now. You've learned how to navigate that, and I feel like being a Navy brat, and I know you relate to this, Jordan. You kind of get dropped into situations and you have to adapt.
you
And
have to
I've been
figure it
very
out.
adaptable my whole life. So, I go in, I read the room, I figure out what this is, and sometimes maybe it is better for my CFO to lead the meeting, and I'm okay with that. Like I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's
Yeah,
good. Glad to have
go
Jordan
ahead.
back after her technical difficulties there. I'm sorry, Jordan, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I think that that's something we've talked with a few people who have had military ties, and that's something that is not always discussed. Is that when you're a child, a military brat, there's just something about the adaptability component of that and the influence of that on entrepreneurship. We here with the Jay Young Show really want to impact lives, even if it's just one. And so, when we're looking at future entrepreneurs, what is something from your perspective that you just didn't even think about as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I could do a top 10 list on that. There
How about the top
and
three? Top three.
Yeah, no, there's a couple critical things that I tell people now when they come to me and say, what's your biggest advice? Um, Surround yourself with people you trust. I do that in a couple of ways. Some of them are important, like having a great lawyer to write good contracts and really protect you. Having a good accountant to give you great advice on doing your books. I do accounting work. I don't. I am not an expert in federal income tax accounting and what the benefits or anything are with that. You need to have good technical advisors in the things that you're not great at, so that you're not spending your time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest person on my team, so I've hired people who are smarter and better than me, and I've picked them up along the way. Either they worked for me in industry or they were my client at one point and retired. And so I called it collecting unicorns, which is kind of how we got to our logo.
Oh,
Because
I was going to ask about the logo because I was like,
yeah,
is it because you're so unique? You're the unicorn among
yeah.
others, or?
It was twofold. Was I had a list before I started my company of kind of my dream team, and I would call them unicorns because
Yeah,
people you don't find very often that do what we do.
right,
And then also our clients have called us unicorns before because they're like, nobody does what you guys do. You're
right.
so unique, you're so different. And so that one just kind of actually came easily to me. And then fun fact is Savvy is named after my horse. So my first horse that I got,
Oh my
I got her off a slaughter truck that was headed to Mexico, and she is just my heart horse. I love her. So I gave her a real fancy name because she was, a mutt. And so when I was trying to decide what to name my company, I was sitting in my rocking chair on my porch looking out, and I went, Savvy. And then unicorn, she's a horse. And I was like, well, there we go. And it has a personal meaning as well to me. So I think, entrepreneurship, it's be careful who you surround yourself with and surround yourself with good people who are smarter than you, who do the things you don't do well better themselves. Um, and also uh, to trust yourself. I was listening to Jay on one of your previous episodes talking about executive coaching and being in groups where you can learn stuff. And I love to read. I've had two executive coaches. I have a therapist. I think you have to, when you're a CEO at a company of your own, you need those people around you to lift you up. You need a really strong network because you don't have anybody above you to go to and ask, what should I do? So you kind of need counselors and advisors and to know where to go for help for certain things and also for inspiration. So, but I think sometimes at a certain point you have to realize ultimately you have to rely on yourself and you have to trust yourself. And I think I made a lot of decisions early in my company where I felt like I needed kind of these crutches, around me. Like I couldn't do it on my own, or I needed to ask somebody's opinion when really trust your gut. And Jay, I would be curious to hear what you say about that because as somebody who's done a lot of coaching, a lot of reading, and trying to always be better, sometimes you have to step back and be like, no, I got this.
Yeah, no question. I think one thing that I know you didn't say, but I think focus. I think that you are more focused because you realize, hey, okay, I'm a woman in a man's world. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that's what
It's true.
it's out there. Yeah. I'm just saying it's out there, okay? But you're more focused on what do you need to do, right? I need to generate income. And that's the first thing. All businesses or most businesses fail because obviously they don't generate enough income to pay the bills. So they're like, okay, I give up and I'm out. So I think that's and having a COO, having a CFO, having those kind of people on doing their jobs. That's great. Hey, I'm not the accounting person. That's like for me, I'm not the accounting person. If somebody asked me one day, they go, hey, Jay, what do you think about having perforations and what kind of frac are you going to use on that well? And I go, dude, I have no idea. That is something that we have like 4 or 5 engineers and that's what they do. And that's what we have people going to school for that. But I think focus, Sarah, which is a great thing for you. And that's what you've done is you focused on what you need to focus to generate income. How do you make money? Well, you make money by, finding companies that generate oil and gas income. And I don't know if you chase around too many of those people that have 4 wells, like you said earlier. I know, but you would definitely want to find the people that generate enough income so you could pay your bills. But I think focus is one. People you trust, technical people, and I think focus are the three good things. Jordan, what do you think?
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head there, Sarah, when you're talking about going forward without the crutches. It's so difficult, especially if you, and I don't mean to say this in any way that's a negative sense, but there's just this certain expectation of women, especially in the South, for relying on others, whether that's a provider or just how you operate your life. And so there's almost, and like, to get approval from your parents, and like they're very an integral part of your life. And so you're just naturally keen to approval and guidance, and what you've said, I assume, are these crutches. And when you truly step back and you look at yourself and you trust yourself and you say, no, I have this, I got this, what I need is inside of me, and I'm going to make this vision come to life. And another thing, just like Jay said with the focus, one thing that you've mentioned as well is like writing what I call the shopping list. Like, who is my dream team? What does that look like? And then, understanding that in such a deep way, and then almost like manifesting that. And I'm a firm believer in the manifestation. But
me too.
From what
I think speaking things into existence, and also I've always been a planner. So I've always got, my 6 month plan, my 1 year plan, my 3 year plan, my 5 year plan, my 10 year plan. Like I'm always thinking forward and how do I get from A to Z and the steps to do that. And to your point, yeah, but I do think, being a woman, um, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome there and I shared this story the other day too at a event I was speaking at. One of our clients that was a prospect was meeting with us on the phone, and they're not a super major, but they're close. And like I said, we go up against my former employer quite a bit, and they have a big team. And so they looked at me and they said, can you handle us? Can you handle our company and this many wells and this many states and with your small team? I mean, we have a team of 14. And I stopped for a second and I was like, man, they don't think I can do this. And can I do this? And you get this comparison. And then I went, wait a minute, kid that runs that team was my intern. Yeah, I am one of the like top 3 people in the world at what I do. And my team has combined experience, blows them out of the water. Hell yeah, I can do it, and we have done it. We've done work for almost all of the super majors with no problem. But it's that when people question you, then you question yourself. And that hesitation moment where I'm like, oh gosh, can I? Those hesitations are getting shorter and shorter. And Jay, as you mentioned earlier, who my clients are, those 4 well clients, I do have my top list of my top 20 clients I would love to have. It probably would be different than you'd think because I have my reasons for wanting them. But we're very fortunate at this point to where a lot of people call us when they need us. So while I do think that's a part of my strategy of the way I've used LinkedIn for marketing and putting my voice out there is people, when they need us, they know where to come. And, we have a seat at the table now that we didn't have 5 years ago. We get asked to the table. And so a lot of those four well companies I might meet playing at a poker tournament up in Dallas. And they're like, hey, I really need your help. And I'm like, sure, we can do it. So I don't necessarily go out looking for them. A lot of times they find us now, but I credit that to kind of the marketing strategy I put in place, which was put this stuff out there into the world so that people know who we are and they come to us when they need us.
That's great.
And I think you've done a fantastic job at that, might I add. Your emails, your LinkedIn, the branding, the marketing, it's incredible to see what you've done and to see you at conferences speaking, getting published in Newsweek and the like. And you just are rocking it, Sarah. We're really, really happy to have you on. Jay, I have one more question for Sarah. Do you have any other questions for her?
I think so when you're 8 years old, what was your favorite TV show?
When I was 8 years old,
when you were 8 years old, what was your favorite TV show?
Fraggle Rock.
Oh, really? Wow. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, one of the favorites.
I love these rapid fire questions.
Let me see. Okay, during your high school reunion, your high school prom, what was the theme? What was the theme song? I got help from these questions. I thought about these questions, and I was at a conference on Monday at TCU, and this guy was asking these questions. What was the theme song at your high school prom?
Paradise City.
There you go, man. You are so good at this. I mean, I'm surprised when somebody said
rapid fire.
Man, when somebody said, "Can you handle this? Can you handle our company?" You didn't say, "Hey, you don't know who you're talking to." I mean, that's what I was surprised right there, man. I tell you what.
I love questions like that. I think they're so fun and getting to. What was your high school song at prom?
Man, I don't even remember. 1980, 81. I don't know. I was afraid somebody was going to ask me that question, but I'm glad. And you caught me. You got me. You got me. I don't know. What was the song back in '81? Oh, Kenny Rogers, Oak Ridge Boys. There's Celebration.
Jordan wasn't born yet.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, if I tell you mine, I'm gonna really date
I'm
myself.
more of a, I love the late 80s, the early 80s I don't know as much of. Trying to see maybe Footloose or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Celebration. Celebrate
Yeah.
good
That's
times.
a good one.
Yeah, that was a good
We
song.
can vote on that one, Jay.
We should play that as the outro on this.
I know we should.
Well, Sarah, I have one last question for you, and that is your journey throughout your career has been very I don't mean this in bad, like it's great, wild, because it's just been so everywhere. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh gosh. I think if you'd met 18-year-old Sarah, she's a lot different than the Sarah you meet today. I was pretty shy and reserved. I would have said, have confidence in yourself. I think confidence is something that I have worked really hard to develop over the past 25 years. And don't try to be like everybody else. Don't feel like you have to be like everybody else. You can be yourself and you can be different and take those chances. Because I think I didn't have the confidence to do that early on, and maybe was just trying to blend in with everybody else, and less of that and more. But I'm also these go back in time questions is you are a culmination of everything that you've been through. So you're one of one. Nobody has your same experiences that you had. And I don't think if I hadn't gone through all the things that I did in the way that I did, it wouldn't have shaped me into who I am today. So it's hard to go back and kind of change the future and say what it was, because you just have to live life to become who you are, and but have fun doing it. Probably don't walk down the aisle at that first wedding. Maybe been my advice. But other than that, I don't really have many regrets.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's beautiful, and you do deserve to be the unicorn that you are.
Oh, thank you, Jordan.
Absolutely.
I appreciate.
Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? What's the big? What's the big?
Okay,
big
so my plan manifesting into the universe is my son is 8, so he is going to graduate high school in 10 years. Probably go play college football like his dad. My husband played at Texas Tech. And so I would like to retire in 10 years is my plan, so that I can go be there for my son. We can travel, we can do things. So that's my goal, is to really do what I can do over the next 10 years. But what I'd love to do in my retired life is, and I've talked to a couple people about this, potentially serving on some public or private boards, and passing back that knowledge. But I do a lot of nonprofit work, and my dream would be to open a big animal sanctuary and take in kind of old and decrepit animals that nobody else wants. And that would be my dream. And my husband's like, can I just have a pumpkin patch in a corner somewhere? And I was like, yes.
There you go.
But I would love that. I love animals. I would love to do that. I have the ability to do that someday, and then, have the wherewithal to afford to keep that up and be able to travel and enjoy my family. So I have a pretty distinct vision of where I'm going.
Good. How much are you going to sell your company to Ryan for? We need to work on. Let's sell this business to Ryan for.
Are you gonna broker the deal for me?
Absolutely. I have nothing else to do. Nothing else.
It's almost all of our competitors have offered to buy me at this point, but it's hard once you've gone out and started your own company to think about working for somebody else. And
Yeah.
with a company like ours, you can't just pass the reins over. They're going to want you to go with it. And I kind of like my freedom. I'm a little bit of a wild Mustang unicorn. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I do, that might be a natural pathway 10 years down the road. And Jay, I will certainly have you on speed dial to help me negotiate that.
That's awesome. That is so good. I think that's about it. We're getting ready for a wrap here. I think, unless Jordan, you have anything else?
No, I think if you just type Sarah Magruder in LinkedIn, you will see her all over there. Definitely give her a follow, especially if you want to keep up with the events in the energy industry. She does such a great job of going to all of them. And I know Jay and I can't wait to see you at the next show that we're both at, or all three of us
I,
at.
I want to say thank you so much for having me on. Again, with the imposter syndrome, if you look at the list of y'all's podcast, I was like, what am I doing on here as a guest? I mean, it's you've got some impressive friends in your network, and I'm very, very honored to be on here. And Jordan, I think the world of you. Jay, I just think you're such a cool guy and have so many great experiences to share. So I'm thankful in what we talked about earlier about oil and gas doing a better job of marketing. I think you're doing a little piece of helping that by bringing these guests and these topics and things out into the world for people to hear in this new digital age. So thank you guys for doing this podcast and having people on it and spreading the good word. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you probably in Midland in a couple weeks.
That's right. It is Midland in a couple of weeks. That's awesome. Well, hey, everybody, I'll tell you what, I'm very excited about the show today. Sarah was great. You're unbelievable. I mean, you're just what do you call that person that's the leader out there, whatever you call it? I can't think of it right now. The trendsetter, yeah.
Oh, trendsetter.
You're
Yes.
you're the influencer. Yeah, but hey, you're
I'll
the
take it.
the trendsetter. I tell you what, I like is I think that if anybody has a question, if you're in high school, college, maybe just getting out, and you have a question, ping Sarah. I mean, you can ping Jordan too. I guarantee you she's going to write you back on LinkedIn if you just say, "Hey, I'd like some help. I need something." Sarah's the kind of person that not only will she go up to the karaoke mic and sing with you, she will definitely do that, but she'll also help you do whatever. So, man, Sarah, it's so good to have you.
That is true. I am happy. I think that in life you've got to give back. Otherwise, what's the point? So you are absolutely correct, and I'm happy to help her answer any questions.
Absolutely, that's great. Stay focused. This is from Sarah. Stay focused, and but everybody, thank you so much for being here today, Jordan, Sarah. So great to have both of you on this. I'll tell you, I'm really pleased, and we're going to have a great time. Sarah Magruder, everybody, go to Sarah Magruder on LinkedIn. Savvy Oil and Gas Consulting. Learn something about the business. I learned something today. Jordan, did you learn anything?
Oh, I've learned a bunch. Very, very grateful to have you on, Sarah. Thank you so much.
So awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, until next time, I think we're going to see you back here on Friday with Tom Black. But until then, everybody, thank you and have a great day. Hey.